Ambassador Catherine Wells stood at the podium of the Galactic Council chambers, her hands clasped behind her back in a pose that every diplomat in the galaxy had learned to recognize as dangerously calm. The assembled representatives of 43 species watched her with varying degrees of confusion, amusement, and dismissal. The Draconian Empire had just concluded their presentation on human territorial limitations, essentially demanding that Earth surrender half of its colonies to make room for draconian expansion. The hegemony had followed with their proposal for human military restrictions, suggesting that Earth's armed forces be reduced to ceremonial status. Finally, the consortium had presented their human trade regulations, which would effectively turn humanity into an economic vassal state. Now it was Earth's turn to respond. Honored delegates, Ambassador Wells began, her voice carrying the kind of deadly politeness that made seasoned diplomats nervous. Humanity appreciates the detailed suggestions you've presented today regarding our future role in galactic civilization. Emperor Velthak of the Draconian Empire leaned back in his ceremonial throne, his scaled lips curling into what passed for a smile among his species. Ambassador Wells, surely you understand that these are not suggestions. The combined might of our three empires represents 80% of galactic military capacity. You would be wise to accept these terms gracefully. Wells nodded thoughtfully. Your Excellency raises an interesting point about military capacity. Before I respond to your generous offers, perhaps I should clarify something that seems to have caused confusion in our diplomatic relations. She activated her personal data pad, and the chamber's main display filled with information that made several delegates shift uncomfortably in their seats. For the past 2 centuries, humanity has participated in galactic affairs under what we call diplomatic protocols. These protocols were established to ensure peaceful coexistence and prevent misunderstandings about our capabilities. The display showed comparative military data that didn't match any intelligence reports the assembled species possessed. You see, gentlemen, when humanity joined the galactic community, our social scientists determined that our full military potential might be intimidating to our new neighbors. So we implemented certain restrictions on our public military presence. Admiral Crixtoll of the Hegemony Navy leaned forward, his tentacles writhing with sudden concern. What kind of restrictions? Wells smiled, and for the first time, her diplomatic mask slipped just enough to reveal something that made the temperature in the chamber seem to drop several degrees. Well, Admiral, for example, the ships you've observed representing Earth's military are our diplomatic escort vessels, what you might call patrol boats. We felt it would be rude to bring our actual warships to peaceful negotiations. The display updated with technical specifications that caused the consortium's military advisor to make a choking sound. Similarly, Wells continued conversationally, the human colonies you've been monitoring represent about 12% of our actual territorial holdings. We established the others in regions you hadn't explored yet, to avoid competing for resources. Emperor Velthak's confident smile was rapidly fading. You're claiming hidden territories? Not hidden, Your Excellency. Simply, discreetly located. We found that being too visible in our expansion made other species nervous. So we've been very careful to only establish colonies in areas that wouldn't interfere with your own plans. Trade Minister Kelvora of the consortium spoke up, her voice shaking slightly. The trade figures, your economic reports. Accurate, Wells replied cheerfully. For the civilian economy we allow to interact with galactic markets. Our military-industrial complex operates on a separate economic system entirely. We wouldn't want to disrupt galactic trade by flooding your markets with our products. The chamber had grown deathly quiet except for the hum of life support systems. Wells looked around at the faces staring at her with dawning comprehension. Now, regarding your proposals, she said, returning to the podium with the same measured steps she'd used throughout her presentation. Humanity must respectfully decline. All of them. You cannot simply refuse. Emperor Velthak roared, his composure finally cracking. We represent the strongest military alliance in galactic history. Wells nodded sympathetically. Yes, Your Excellency, you do. And for 2 centuries, We've been very careful to let you believe that your alliance represents the strongest military force in this galaxy. She gestured to her data pad, and the display filled with images that no galactic intelligence service had ever seen. Vast shipyards hidden in asteroid fields, military academies on worlds that didn't appear on any star charts, and fleet formations that dwarfed anything the three empires could muster. But you see, gentlemen, there's a difference between being polite and being weak. We've been polite because we preferred cooperation to conquest. We've been restrained because we believed in diplomatic solutions. We've been accommodating because we thought you understood that our restraint was a choice, not a limitation. The silence in the chamber was so complete that the sound of Ambassador Wells closing her datapad seemed to echo like a gunshot. However, your proposals today suggest that you've mistaken our courtesy for weakness. This is unfortunate, because it means our diplomatic protocols are no longer serving their intended purpose. Emperor Velthak found his voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. What are you saying? Ambassador Wells straightened her jacket with the same calm precision she'd maintained throughout the session. I'm saying, Your Excellency, that humanity is hereby withdrawing from diplomatic restrictions. Effective immediately, our actual military will assume standard patrol duties. Our colonial expansion will proceed at normal rates, and our economy will operate at full capacity. She paused at the chamber doors, looking back at the stunned assembly. We were being polite, gentlemen. We hope you'll remember that when you see what we're like when we're not.